All right, grade 5. So this week we are moving on to medicine and physicians in ancient Egypt. This is on page number 91. And we're going to look at two headings, one being anatomy and physiology, and then the other being diseases and clinical bedside examinations. Right. So the ancient Egyptians were very advanced. I'm going to start with disease and clinical examinations. They said here that the Egyptians believed that evil spirits could cause disease. They also realized that some illnesses could be prevented by keeping their bodies clean. They washed their bodies and kept the clothes and the cups they drank from clean. So doctors also helped people who were sick. And medical information was written on papyrus sheets so that doctors could read it. Right, so again, showing you that the civilization in ancient Egypt were very, very advanced. They already had like a hierarchy. Remember we learned about the pyramid where we said that the farmers were right at the bottom, and then you had your tax collectors, your government officials, all the way up to the pharaoh. Right, the doctors would also be quite important, so they would be up there. But these people were able to help those that were sick and give them advice on how to get better. Right. Also, another very important thing is they knew by keeping clean they wouldn't get certain illnesses. So they'd already discovered sanitation. Right. And as we know now with the coronavirus that's going on, we need to make sure that we keep our hands clean. We sanitize our hands to prevent the illness. So all these many years ago, right. So here we can see 1500 BC with regards to mummification. This is when they already had discovered to make sure that they keep themselves clean. The next heading being anatomy and physiology. So when you hear the word anatomy and physiology, that refers to the body and studying the body. Okay, so under this heading it says the Egyptians learnt about the human body from preparing the dead bodies for the afterlife. They started by removing the brain and stomach. They washed out the body with palm wine and filled the spaces left with herbs and spices to preserve the body. It says they sewed the body up and left it for 70 days. The body then dried out. After that, it was then washed, and they washed the body all over and wrapped it in strips of linen cloth before putting it in a tomb. It says a dead body wrapped in this way was called a mummy. All right, and there's a few slides here that will just better explain this for you. All right, referred to as mummification. So we're going to look at what is a mummy. All right, so what is a mummy? We'll move on to the next slide. It says here that mummification preserves the body of the deceased so that the soul recognizes it when it returns to it each night to rejuvenate. So this is what the ancient Egyptians believed. And remember, they believed that the pharaoh was somewhat of a god. So the pharaoh would have to be mummified so that the pharaoh's soul could recognize his body when returning to it. So they had to make sure that the body didn't decompose or decay. And that's why they had the process of mummification in order to preserve the body. As we go through it, remember Anubis, the god of mummification, also as we learn the god of death. He will be portrayed as usually a human body with the head of an animal. Okay, in this case it's a head of fox. And here you can see there's an Egyptian painting that you'd have to interpret. Alright, and you can also see there's a reference to hieroglyphics here at the back. So it was a 70-day process. Here you can see they are using palm wine. And the reason why they use palm wine is because it contains alcohol, and alcohol will kill off all the bacteria. When we currently preserve meat, we sometimes use vinegar, because vinegar also helps to prevent bacteria or mold from growing. Okay, then we had canopic jars. This is not in the textbook, but these are the jars that they would use to store the organs in. I know this might seem a bit gruesome, especially if you think about how they're preserving the body now for the afterlife. Right, someone had to do this job, and it is a bit scary if you think about it. And then lastly, they would be put into a sarcophagus. This is an important word for you to remember. Right, this is referred to as a coffin. It's a very fancy coffin. Okay, you can see that it's sometimes got gold and made out of gold, or it has very nice patterns on. Right, and this was made for the pharaohs because the pharaohs were very, very important. Okay, so a new word for you to remember is a sarcophagus, referred to as a coffin. So these are just the two things that we're going to cover today. I need you to make sure that you know what mummification is and what the process was. All right, and then disease and clinical bedside visits as well as examinations. Just to know that ancient Egypt already had its first form of doctors that were able to give medical advice and know how to prevent certain illnesses and also how to treat certain sicknesses. Okay, grade 5, so on page number 91, there's activity 9. There's just 5 short questions for you to answer there. and it's quite easy. And then next week we'll be moving on to King Tutankhamun, all right, just to show you what he looked like, one of the very famous pharaohs of ancient Egypt. All right, so grade 5, so those of you that are studying at home, you just keep your heads down. Hopefully I'll see most of you soon. All right, if not, just make sure that you're staying on top of your activities and sending through the most important stuff to me, so things like your tasks and tests, etc. Okay,